Is it normal for your manager at a children's clothing store to order you to check the fitting rooms every 15 minutes? What about when customers are inside during these checks? Or the mysterious notes your manager keeps about these inspections? Today's story tells a real event that happened at one of the largest children's clothing chains in the United States and turned an employee's life upside down. If you have experienced something similar, send your story to the email address in the description. Maybe we will tell your story in the next video.
It was late September, that busy period right when the school season began. I was 24 years old and working as a visual merchandiser at the Kids Place store in Stamford, Connecticut. When I arrived at the store at 8:30 in the morning, the autumn sun was just beginning to rise over the city. Our shopping center on Stamford's Main Street was still quiet at those hours. Only the footsteps of security guards echoed in the corridors. I truly loved my job, arranging clothes on mannequins, preparing window displays according to the season. Playing with color palettes had become not just a job but a passion for me. I was a medium-height, glasses-wearing girl who always wore my brown hair in a bun. From the first day I entered the store, I quickly rose thanks to my obsession with details. Every morning when I came to the store, I would check the placement of every single piece in the window display, and if it had shifted even a centimeter, I would fix it. That morning, I entered through the back door as usual. The fluorescent lights of the staff room dazzled my eyes. As I was putting my bag in the locker, I saw Assistant Manager David approaching me. David was in his early 30s, with very serious facial features, always dressed neatly. His dark hair was slicked back with gel, his blue eyes always looked tired. He had been working at this store for 5 years, and the disappointment of never having received a promotion could be read on his face. David told me that manager Patricia would be holding a morning meeting in her office. His voice was more tense than normal. He kept moving his hands. Patricia Henderson was a woman in her mid-40s, with platinum blonde hair cut short, sharp facial features, and always wearing dark-colored suits. She was about 5 feet 5 inches tall, but her posture made her appear taller than she was. Her eyes were dark brown and cold, as if she was constantly evaluating you. She had been the manager of this store for 12 years, and her self-confidence sometimes turned into arrogance. When I entered her office, Patricia was sitting upright behind her desk. Her office was always spotless, no papers were left out. Various sales awards and achievement certificates hung on the walls. She gestured for me to sit down. A thick folder sat on her desk, and when she opened this folder, she pulled out pages and pages of documents. Patricia told me that the company was beginning to implement a new security protocol. Her voice was very formal and cold. According to this protocol, a new responsibility was being added to my duties as a visual merchandiser. From now on, I would need to check the fitting rooms in the store every 15 minutes. As she said this, she pulled out a form from the folder on her desk. On the form was a detailed report sheet that needed to be filled out at each check. At first, I thought this was a sensible security measure. Children's clothing stores were sensitive about theft. However, when Patricia explained the form, a strange feeling arose in me. The form did not just ask me to mark whether the booths were empty or occupied, but also required me to note how many people were inside, the cleanliness condition of the booths, the number of hangers in the booths, and even whether the lights inside the booths were working. Patricia told me that while doing this check, I needed to slightly part the curtains of the booths and look inside. When she said this, there was a strange expression on her face, as if she was saying something very normal. I asked her in astonishment, what if there were customers inside? Patricia said I needed to respect the privacy of customers, but still had to do the check, because this was company policy. When I left the meeting that morning, I felt a strange pressure in my stomach. The store had not opened yet, but I took the form Patricia had given me and walked toward the fitting rooms. Our store's fitting rooms were in the back section, right next to where the children's pants and sweatshirts were located. There were 6 booths, and in front of each hung curtains made of thick fabric in light blue. I did my first check. The booths were empty. I looked inside each one. Wooden sitting benches, hangers mounted on the walls, Soft lights on the ceiling. Everything looked normal. I filled out the form and left it on Patricia's desk. Patricia took the form, examined it carefully, and nodded in approval. There was a strange satisfaction in her eyes. The store opened at 9 o'clock. It was a weekday, but because it was school season, mothers were bringing their children shopping even in the morning hours. As I was busy with window display arrangement, David came and reminded me that 15 minutes had passed. I needed to go to the fitting rooms again. This time one of the booth curtains was closed. Slight rustling sounds came from inside. It was obvious someone was trying on clothes. My heart started beating fast. Was I really going to part the curtain and look inside? Patricia's words echoed in my mind. Company policy, security protocol. I slowly approached the curtain and slightly parted it. Inside was a young mother trying to dress her little girl in a dress. When the woman looked up at me, I saw an expression of surprise and discomfort on her face. I immediately apologized and closed the curtain. My hands were shaking as I filled out the form. Every word I wrote felt wrong to me, but Patricia's instructions were very clear. I left the form on her desk again. This time as Patricia read the form, she nodded approvingly and smiled, telling me I had done a good job. Throughout the day I repeated the same routine every 15 minutes. Toward noon, the store was quite full. Since Stamford was close to New York City, there were families coming shopping from even Manhattan. All the booths were full, and with each check, I saw people getting dressed, dressing their children in clothes, or sometimes just sitting to rest. Once, I saw a young woman standing inside in only her underwear. When I parted the curtain, the woman almost screamed. I immediately apologized and withdrew, but the woman's angry look stayed in my mind for a long time. Another time, I saw a teenage girl undressing inside, and I noticed she blushed and was embarrassed. After each check, a bad feeling grew in my stomach. This was not normal. I had not seen such a practice in any store. In my previous job, when I worked at a large department store, there were special buttons to check the booths. Counts were made before customers entered the booths, but we never parted curtains to look inside. During my lunch break, I ran into Madison, one of the young sales associates, in the staff room. Madison was 19 years old, with long blonde hair, green eyes, and still acne mark traces on her face. A very energetic girl. She was studying psychology at the University of Connecticut, and worked here part-time on weekends. Madison asked me what I thought about these booth checks. Her voice was very low, and she was looking around us. Madison told me that last week, a customer had complained about her. The customer said that Madison had been inside while checking the booth, and this made her very uncomfortable. But when Patricia talked to the customer, she said this was a security protocol and the customer needed to get used to it. The customer left the store angrily. When I got home that day, I felt very tired. In my small apartment in Stamford, as I sat on my couch, the events of the day played over and over in my mind. Every parted curtain, every surprised look, every uncomfortable facial expression. This job was making me sick. The next day at the morning meeting, Patricia made a new announcement. Now the booth check forms needed to be detailed. We were asked to note not only the condition of the booths, but also the types of clothes being tried on inside, and the physical appearances of the customers. As Patricia said this, she said these were necessary for theft, profiling. But her tone and facial expression seemed very strange to me. After the meeting ended, David approached me and said in a low voice that this situation was bothering him too. David's voice was trembling. His hands were clenched in his pockets. He told me that Patricia had become obsessed with these checks for the last 6 months, that she examined these forms for hours at the end of each day. In fact, once he saw Patricia sitting late at night in her office, reading these forms and taking notes. On the third day, the incident exploded. Around 2 o'clock in the afternoon, a middle-aged woman came to the store. The woman had gone shopping with her daughter, and her daughter was trying on a skirt in the fitting room. When I went to do my routine check, I slightly parted the curtain. Inside was a girl about 14 years old, standing in only her underwear. The girl screamed when she saw me. Her mother came running and started yelling at me. The woman said her daughter's privacy had been violated, that this was unacceptable. Her voice could be heard from everywhere in the store. Other customers were also looking at the incident. Not knowing what to do, I called Patricia. When Patricia arrived, she told the woman very calmly that this was company policy, that it was necessary for security. But the woman did not accept this. The woman said she would call the police, that she would file a complaint against the company. Patricia's face turned red, but she did not raise her voice. She only told the woman that if she did not like our policies, she could shop at another store. The woman took her daughter and left the store, throwing the clothes in her hands on the floor. After the store closed, Patricia called us to an emergency meeting. At the meeting there was only me, David, and Madison. Patricia was very angry. Her face was tense, her voice trembling. She told us that the incident that happened today was unacceptable, that we needed to be more careful with customers. But the real problem was not that we were not doing the checks, but how we could not calm the customers down. That night at home, lying in my bedroom, my mind dwelt on this situation. I was now sure this was not normal. There had to be an explanation for Patricia's obsession. The next day, when Patricia went out during office hours, I gathered my courage and entered her office. Those folders were sitting on her desk, my hand trembling. I opened the folder. Inside were hundreds of pages. They were all booth check forms, but not just from our store, from other stores too. Patricia had collected these forms, had taken notes on them. On some pages, the physical characteristics of customers were described in detail, underlined, starred. My stomach turned. These forms were not for security. Patricia was collecting them for a completely different purpose. I put the folder back in its place and left the office. My heart was beating as if it would burst from my chest. I now knew what I had to do. When the evening shift ended, I sent an email directly to the company's human resources department. I described everything we had experienced in detail. Patricia's forms, the customer's discomfort, those folders I saw in her office. 2 days later, 2 people from the company's headquarters came to our store. They met with Patricia for hours. That same afternoon, we learned that Patricia had been removed from her position. The Human Resources Department met with all the employees one by one. They told us that such a protocol had never been company policy, that Patricia had implemented this on her own. Weeks later, we learned that Patricia had done similar things at another store before, but no one had complained at that time. This time, that mother's complaint to the police and the email I sent to Human Resources caused the incident to grow. The company's legal department reviewed all security camera footage from the past 6 months. The cameras showed Patricia walking around near the fitting rooms for hours, sometimes standing and waiting in front of the booths. Additionally, among the files found on Patricia's computer were hundreds of customer photos. These photos had been taken from security cameras and specially saved. The Human Resources Department tried to reach customers who had shopped at this store in the past. Many customers said they had experienced similar disturbing experiences, but had not dared to complain. One customer told how her young son had cried in the fitting room because an adult had parted the curtain and looked at him. Another customer said her 16-year-old daughter never wanted to come to that store again after that day. For me, the hardest part was that in those days I had accepted this practice without making a sound. I felt guilty every night before sleeping. That young girl's scream, that mother's angry looks came to my mind. I started going to a psychologist because I could not deal with my conscience.
And so an ordinary day that began at a children's clothing store had turned into a violation of hundreds of people's privacy due to an uncontrolled manager's obsession. After Patricia Henderson was fired from the company, she could never find a job in this sector again. So what do you think? Have strange, illogical rules ever been applied to you at work? What would you have done if you were in this situation? We are waiting for your comments.